Is everything going well? If not, please tell us what is bothering you. Please, maybe we can help? My wife is pregnant with another man's baby after we took a break and wants to keep it. I don't. What should we do? We are both in our 30s, and we've been together for 14 years, married for 10. Before our relationship, we hadn't had lots of previous relationships each. In this last year, we started to have loads of issues and decided to go on a break in January, just to take the time to maybe appreciate each other for a bit and see what life's like on our own, and maybe see other people if we decided to. On our break, we both were okay with us both experimenting and being with other people, and I've had a fling and I knew she did too. So a few weeks back, with the current pandemic and before we had lockdown here, we decided to move back together and carry on our relationship. Now as soon as we moved back in together we talked about our experience with other people. I'd been with someone casually, definitely with protection, and she'd had a one-night stand with a guy. However, in her situation she was super drunk and was sick, so she thinks she threw it back up, and it's one of those if you don't take it at the right time every day, you could get pregnant. So she has an STI test, clear, and a pregnancy test, positive. We're child-free, or at least I thought we were, and always had an agreement that if we ever had an accident we'd have a termination. The baby is definitely not mine, absolutely not possible. So she had a termination scheduled for last Thursday. She came to me on the day and said she just couldn't go through with it. She wants to keep the baby. Now I freak out. I've told her we've always been child-free and definitely I don't want kids still. I don't want to raise another man's kid. She's apologized to me for being so stupid, but is saying she is 100% sure. I've been trying so hard to convince her she shouldn't keep it, but she's just not having it. She said we can raise the kid as our own. I'm not having it. It would have been enough if she had a kid of mine, but at least I could accept that it'd be my kid if that happened. This kid will be another man's. Nothing to do with me. What the sweet F do I do? I know the sensible answer is walk away and cut your losses, but it's not that easy. I love her and we've been in each other's lives for so long. Plus we're in the middle of a quarantine and she's got nowhere to go. I'd feel horrible kicking a pregnant woman out to fend for herself at a time like this, but I don't want a kid, ever. Not even if it was my own. TLDR, me and wife went on a break and she got pregnant accidentally with another man's child and wants to keep it. I don't, as we've always been child-free. Update. To my wife is pregnant with another man's baby after we took a break and wants to keep it. Okay, so we're looking at getting a divorce. I've spoken to a solicitor, have got my options and have started the process. So it's actually going to happen. I'm getting divorced. I got lots of amazing advice, but the overwhelming was that I shouldn't be forced to raise a child that isn't mine or try to get someone to have an abortion. To be honest, I knew that deep down. I just didn't want to admit it and was scared about facing the fact that our relationship was already damaged. And this was the straw that broke the camel's back. The one moment where I snapped that made me start the process was Monday. We had more or less confirmed we were going to divorce, but hadn't started anything at that point yet. She tried to initiate sex. That was it for me. That was my cue. I was done. Like we're talking about a divorce, ending our marriage, and you want to jump. Massive argument and led to me actually asking her for the divorce. After we calmed down, we both agreed this is the best course of action. And she is equally as committed as I am to getting a divorce and agrees it's for the best. We're obviously freaking gutted. We still love each other so much, but this is too big a thing. I am 100% sure I'm never having kids, looking into finally having a vasectomy after this whole lockdown goes away, and she is 100% sure she wants this kid, which I can't get my head around still, and she says she can't believe it either how much her mind has changed, especially as she was so militant about being child-free. But she says it's like something has just changed in her and she can't fight it. I think it's bullcrap, but there you go. We've found the guy who knocked her up on social media. She's messaged him and they're now talking about what to do and making plans for crap. I don't know what they're talking about and I don't give a F honestly. Probably scans, money, names, etc. As long as they keep me out of it. Do I say good luck? He looks so young though. And his username where I found him has 97 in it, so I think he's only 22 or 23. Don't get me started on that one. So God knows what the future holds. For now she's staying here in a separate room until we work out where she goes, but is likely to move in with her half-sister as the lockdown situation changes. The house is mine, I inherited it and she agrees as such. Whether she'll be that way after getting a solicitor remains to be seen. But I have the paperwork and as it was before we were married, so I understand she doesn't have much of a chance. And I'm not letting her have the dog. She'll have a nice shiny new kid to walk away with, and won't have time to look after a senior dog and a kid. I'll fight for these two things tooth and nail. I'm angry, hurt, sad and weirdly relieved it's out in the open now. Like I can start chapter 2 of my life. TLDR, argued, agreed on divorce, and I've started divorce proceedings. She's staying here until she can move out. She's found the baby daddy and is making plans with him. Am I the unreasonable one for adopting a kid my friend's sister had planned to adopt? My wife and I had adopted my niece Katie when she was 3, and when she was 6 we were looking to adopt another child. My wife's friend introduced us to her sister, Jill, who was also trying to adopt. About 2 months into being friends with Jill, she found a boy she wanted to adopt, Henry, who was 7 at the time. Jill took Henry out for the day. My wife and I were taking Katie to the park, so we arranged to meet them there. Henry and Katie instantly got on. Henry was a great kid, but very hyper, presumably because he was excited to meet Jill. Jill commented to me that she hadn't been able to calm Henry down all morning, and asked if we could watch him for a second while she took a breather. We agreed and spent the time talking to Henry, who seemed to fit in well with our existing family dynamic. Eventually it was time for us all to leave, so we went our separate ways. Several weeks later, Jill called me to say that the adoption had been rejected by the agency. Apparently Henry himself had refused it, so the agency had to decline. A few months after that, Jill found a different child she wanted to adopt and started the process, while we were invited to an open day at a local home, where several prospective parents and families meet the kids. When we were there we saw Henry. We were using the same agency as Jill, and it was coincidence or luck depending on how you look at it. Henry remembered us, we still got on great with him, and we ended up adopting him. From what Henry has said, he rejected Jill as she didn't have a lot of patience and wasn't willing to work with him, while we were a bit more flexible. We didn't tell Jill because at this stage we'd only ever met her twice, once for coffee, and then the park, and while we'd had some contact with her over text and phone calls, we didn't know how she'd take this. We also didn't tell our friend, but after adopting Henry we posted an updated family photo on social media, which a different friend shared, and that was how the first friend saw it. She told Jill that we'd adopted him, and Jill replied to our post that she'd considered us friends and we'd adopted her son out from under her. We clarified the timeline immediately, but our friends were shocked at us, and we received several messages saying they couldn't believe we'd done that and saying Henry should essentially be seen as off-limits to us because he'd rejected Jill, some even calling us greedy because we already had my niece while Jill had no kids. We felt that was absurd and ended up blocking most of them. But to this day whenever we see any of them they're still appalled that we adopted Henry. Even the people who supported us joke about us stealing other people's kids. Are we being unreasonable? My ex-boyfriend wants to meet up and discuss why we broke up, but I'm cautious of him. I'm going to start off by saying that I am Asian American and I'm 30 years old. I am not Japanese, Chinese or Korean. I met my boyfriend Joe, who is 28 years old currently, in 2018 at a summer festival. He's white, good-looking, blonde-haired and blue eyes. He looks like what an average American male looks like according to my sisters. He's also kind, smart, selfless and incredibly talented. We became friends first before he asked me out last summer. I was on cloud 9. Joe is my first actual boyfriend too. I'm shy and an introvert, so it takes a lot for me to open up. He was the first man who gave me attention and really interacted with me. He was everything I was looking for in a future partner. Loyal, honest, faithful and open-minded. The last description is important because while I'm not a cosplayer, I love to dress in rather vibrant, eye-catching and out-there fashion clothing. Sometimes I like Lolita style. Sometimes I prefer bright colors. Sometimes I like traditional dresses. Examples: link 1 in description. Link 2 in description. My boyfriend knew how much my sense of style is important to me since I came from a strict family who dictated what I wore even as an adult. I was only allowed to wear pants and sweaters because dresses and skirts were for promiscuous women. My parents calmed down a lot since I left their house, but I choose not to visit them unless I have to. I also decided for myself that I will wear whatever I wanted to and I will not be ashamed of my choices. So when Joe told me that he loved the way I dressed and would not change it for the world, it made me fall in love with him. His actions proved he meant what he said and I let down my guard around him. His acceptance meant a lot to me because there are not a lot of men that I have encountered who are not weirded out by me. However, right before quarantine in March, we headed out to his family's home in another state and a completely different side of him came out. He was extremely critical of the clothes I wore in front of his family and friends and pushed me to change multiple times until I was suitable enough for his taste. He even told me to tone down my Asianness whenever I would wear Asian-styled clothings. This honestly broke my heart. I found the perfect partner, but he only liked the flamboyant part of me only when I could be his dirty little secret. He lied to me about accepting me to get what he wanted. The worst part was that he sounded like my own father, judgmental, embarrassed to be seen with me and disgusted with my choice of clothings. It was very triggering. I left a day earlier than our scheduled date because Joe made the abrupt decision to stay at his parents' home before the quarantine was mandated. He assumed I would stay too, but I used my own money to buy a ticket to go back home. There was no way I was going to stay under his controlling thumb. I also broke up with him the same day and thought that would be it. However, now that things have calmed down a bit, Joe texted me this past weekend telling me he was coming back and wants to talk. Also, Joe is refusing to chat on the phone or answer any questions I have. He only wants to meet in person. Admittedly, I do not want to talk with him nor see him again. But I do also want to know why he had lied to me, why he acted the way he did. I did not ask before since I was still in shock and did not want to cause a scene at his parents' house. What are some things I should do and say if I do decide to meet him, and how do I protect myself? He's my first relationship and it still hurts to even think about him. Am I the unreasonable one for putting up a fence when my neighbors went away for the weekend? I used to put up fences for a living. My wife and I, both women, recently bought my aunt and uncle's old home. The house has a large back garden with narrow paths along the sides of the house, and this leads to a front garden that's about 1/3 of the size of the back, and is half grass and half paving stones. They have neighbors either side with the same setup. The house is number 85. There is no fence between 85 and 83. 83 has 3 kids under 10 years old. My back garden has a lot of space to run around, and as there is no fence and my cousins are similar ages to 83's kids, my aunt and uncle often let 83's kids come over and play with my cousins, and 83's kids have continued to use the garden after my aunt and uncle left. I have nothing against kids, nor does my wife, but we have plans for the back garden. These include putting up a shed, maybe a few flowers, and we're starting the adoption process soon, so we want our kid to have space to play outside. I went out and measured the property lines a couple weeks ago, and the husband of 83 came out and asked what I was doing. I explained about the fence, said I would pay for it, and put it up myself, told him about my former job doing exactly this, and asked when would be best for me to do it. He said not to do it at all. I asked why. He said they have a baby and I can't be bashing about with hammers and the like. I said I would try to keep it down, but I would like to do this. He then asked why I needed to, because things were fine as is. I said it's nothing personal, but I'm putting up a shed, and I just don't want his kids coming onto my property and getting hurt. He then said I can't put up the shed for the same reason as the fence, and I could see we weren't getting anywhere and went back inside. Then Thursday night, I'm coming home from work and I see the dad loading bags into their car. Saturday morning and the car is still gone, and has not been seen since Thursday. I figure they've gone away for the weekend, and as the issue with me putting up the fence was the noise for the baby, now would be the time to do it. I bought the fence materials that day. I used wooden posts, panels, and gravel to hold it in place. Whole thing was done by Sunday lunch. The fence posts are 1.8 meters and half of that is underground. These things aren't moving until the end of time. It's on my property and less than a meter tall, so I didn't need permission from council or 83. They got back Monday night, and this morning I've woken up to knocking. The husband wants me to get rid of the fence, says it's an eyesore and he's worried his kids will get injured on it. I tell him it's on my property and it's staying. He says he should have been consulted because it's surrounding his property and his wife hates it and thinks it's really ugly. Legally I'm in the clear. Morally, am I the unreasonable one? More info. It is a picket fence made of a pale wood. It looks clean and polished on both sides, but my side is the one with visible building markers, e.g. there is a nail in my side of the fence. There is no such issue on his side and I am open to painting it. Also, in the nicest, most respectful way possible. I built fences as a routine part of my job nearly every day for the better part of 4 years, and have a qualification specifically in putting up various types of fences. So I know what I'm doing when it comes to putting up good-looking fences. Am I the unreasonable one for not apologizing after I ruined my parents' vow renewal? Please hear me out. When I was 12, my parents divorced and began seeing other people. When I was 14, Dad met someone, Helen. Helen had 3 sons. The oldest son, Jake, was only a few months older than me. Of their 6 combined kids, I have 2 brothers. I was the only girl and was excluded a lot by Dad, who would take all 5 boys to do guy stuff while I was left to my own devices. As a result, I only met my potential stepbrothers less than 5 times in the entire 2 years Dad and Helen dated, and when I did it was all 8 of us at once, so there wasn't much one-on-one. When I was 16, Dad proposed to Helen only to realize he still loved my mom. He and Mom got back together shortly after, and remarried when I was 18. When I was 25, I ended up indirectly working for Jake. We recognized each other and had a quick chat every now and again. But due to the nature of my work we couldn't have any sort of relationship, including friendship, in case it looked like favoritism. At 26, my contract ended and I moved to a new workplace. On my last day at my old workplace, Jake asked if we could exchange numbers. We got together a few months later. We agreed to take it slow due to his son, so it was very casual for the first few months and we only saw each other once or twice each month. At 27, I tried to tell mom about Jake. Before I got to the part about him being Helen's son, mom started an argument because Jake has a kid, and I got so distracted by the arguing about Jake's son I didn't even get around to telling her who it was I was seeing. I called dad to try and tell him I was seeing Jake and he said he didn't want to hear whatever I had to say because I'd really upset mom and they'd contact me when mom was ready. Now Jake and I are both 28. Been together nearly 2 years. We moved in together last August. Mom sent me an invite to hers and dad's vow renewal back in January. Given current circumstances, the renewal was moved online. I went into the office to take the call, logged in, greeted everyone, and found out a few people were late, so we talked while we waited. During this, Jake's son came in asking for help with his homework. Jake then came in to take him out, and dad saw him and went, "Jake?" Mom said, "Who's Jake?" Dad said he was Helen's oldest son. Mom asked me what was going on and I told her we're a couple. Suffice to say, this was not taken well. Mom looked upset and physically left the room and dad apologized before ending the call and going after her. The call was still active and everyone else on it sort of said what the FOP, so I just awkwardly ducked out. That was yesterday and since then I've received messages from everyone on the call, plus the ones who were late. They feel I should apologize for ruining their renewal. I am an adult. I am sorry my parents were blindsided, but I won't apologize for my relationship. Plus if they'd heard me out 7-ish months ago they wouldn't be blindsided now. Am I the unreasonable one? Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.